Okay, now that you've had some time to work on these 5 questions, I already checked a lot of yours. Some of you are still struggling. And the main reason you're struggling is because you've been absent. Being absent during the hardest stuff we're going to do all year is going to cause you to have a big empty spot in what you know. Remember, I post all these videos I make every day. I post them on Teams. So you go into Teams when you're absent, go in and make up your notes, or call a friend and say, hey, can I have your notes from Earth Science from Friday? I wasn't here. They'll give you the notes. You can do the practicing on your own. If you don't understand, then go to the video. So this is going to be probably the last day we spend some time making sure you understand this. Walking around in this group, the biggest problem still, even after yesterday, is knowing what to do when. If you remember yesterday, what are the key words for doing the scrap paper stuff? So if you don't know, I had you write it down yesterday. What'd you say? Yes, when we see difference in arrival time. So that one and this one, difference in arrival time. Those are our clues that we need to use the scrap paper. And when I say we need to use the scrap paper, we learned 2 different methods with the scrap paper. So the first thing you do is decide, well, do I use scrap paper or do I not? So you need to write down somewhere so you don't forget this, whether you put it in your note packet where we've been doing these notes on page 21. There's not too much room to write on page 21, but difference in arrival time means use scrap paper. So you have to remember that. Now we've learned 2 different scrap paper methods. We learned starting on the distance, so marking the distance and where the P and S waves touch it. That's the first thing we learned. Or starting over on the y-axis and marking the time. Now knowing when to do which, you go with what they give you. So for this one, I know I'm using scrap paper and they give me a time. So scrap paper and they give me a time. So that means I start at the time. I mark off 0. I mark off 420 and I slide it up and over until I find where it fits. Now it looks like to me it fits here pretty good at 3,000. But remember my trick of going down half a box. If I go to 2,900, it fits even better than at 3,000. So difference meant scrap paper, time meant start at the time, up and over, and I got 2,900 kilometers for the distance. So you grab your scrap paper and do whatever it means when you see the difference in arrival time. Now, number 2 does not have difference in arrival time. It has travel time, or it talks about the word travel. When you see travel, you don't do the scrap paper. Again, we learned 2 different methods without scrap paper, either starting at the distance and going up and over, or starting at the time and going over and down. Again, you go with what they give you. So no scrap paper, and they gave me a time. So no scrap paper, I go to the time that they give me. So 8:10, which is halfway between 8 and the next line up, go over to the P wave and down. So for the P wave, I got 4,900. It was right before the 5,000 line. And the S was 2,300. So another way to notice a difference here. This says just determine the distance. The distance is not a plural answer or a plural phrase. The distance is just give me one answer. Here it says state how far the P and S waves can travel. I want 2 answers. Number 3 doesn't give me difference in arrival time or ask about travel, but it does say the P wave arrived here The S wave arrived here. How far away is the epicenter? Again, it doesn't say anything about travel. No travel means, again, scrap paper stuff. But first, I have to subtract to get the difference. 302, 20. The bigger number always goes on top. Minus 254, 35. If you remember from last night's homework, when you do time math, you don't do 0 minus 5. You stick with 20 minus 35. Still have to borrow. So I come over here and borrow 1 minute. When I borrow 1 minute, how many seconds am I borrowing? I'm borrowing 60. There's already 20 there. So you add those together. So 60 plus 20 is 80. 80 minus 35 is 45. Again, I do 1 minus 54. Can't do it. I have to borrow. So I borrow 1 hour. So I change that to a 2. There's already 1 minute there. And I'm going to add 60 to that. So we do 61 minus 54, which is 7. Now, is that the answer? No, because in the end, it says, how far away is the epicenter? So now I have a difference and I need to figure out how far away the epicenter is. So I mark the 0. I mark 745. Slide it up and over till I find where it fits perfectly. So for me, it looks pretty good here at 6,400, but I'm going to go down that half a box. And again, it fits even better for me at 6,300. Now, question 4 again says, determine the difference in arrival time. So that difference in arrival time means grab scrap paper. They give me a distance. So I do the scrap paper stuff, but they give me a distance. So those numbers are over here. Here's 5,000. 5,500 is 2.5 boxes over. Mark the 0, mark the P, bring it down and over. And I get just a tad a bit above 7. So I'd go with 705. Guys, are you paying attention? If you didn't do this, this is your chance to learn how to do it. So you should be practicing these as we go along, not just writing down my answers. That's not going to do you any good. You need to learn how to do these. The last one just says, how long does it take for the P and S waves to travel? So again, to travel means no scrap paper. They give me a distance of 6,300. Here's 6,200. 300 is halfway up or halfway over. Give me the P one. So you go up and over to the P. And I got about 940, maybe a little above, but 940 is good for the P. And for the S, I got 1740. So again, you need to be able to do this for the P and the S waves. Anytime I give you a problem like this, decide if you use scrap paper or not scrap paper, and then how do you do each one? We're going to have a quiz on this on Friday. So we'll practice one more time tomorrow. All right, so you had homework last night. Go ahead and grab page 25. I did ask you only to pick 8. I wasn't looking for you to do all of them. So you need to check your answers here. And then if you want me to explain how to do any of them, let me know. So we start with number 1, has a difference of 125. Number 2 is just 20 minutes even. 3 is 50 seconds. 4, 1 minute. 5, 127. 6, 238. 7, 943. 8 is 4 minutes. No, it's not. It's 47 minutes. 9, 58:59. 10, 31:52. 11, 155.38. 12 is 204. 13 is 36.12. 14, 345.45. 15, 658.59, and 16, 1022.55. Did anybody do any of those and need me to explain how or walk through any of them? Yeah, which one you want to do? 658.59 and 1022.55. Does anybody need me to explain or go through any of those? See, you got all 8 of the ones you did correct. Good. All right, so I have your quizzes from Monday. These were open notes quizzes. It said right on the top of the paper, record your answers to 1 through 22 on this answer sheet. Use your ESRT, your notes, and your reading to answer the following questions. This assignment will be graded for a quiz. So these didn't go well. And my guess is you didn't look up the answers. That one. I didn't get one from you. Yep, these went in the grade book this morning. I did decide to curve these by adding 15 points. Meaning after I graded them, I went back and I looked and I saw that maybe 3 answers were not word for word in your notes. Everything else was word for word in your notes. So I decided to give you 3 answers and gave it 15 points higher than the grade here when I put them in the grade book. So some of you got over 100 once I added those in. All right, so if I did not get one back, or if you did not get one back, you either didn't hand it in, or you're one of these 3 that don't have a name. So if you know you handed it in yesterday, I have a couple up here without a name. Does that apply? Daisy, it does not apply to you. I have yours. So, well, maybe I don't. This, did you answer it on there? This one's yours, probably. Yep. That was yours. All right, write your name on that. Okay, anybody else? Pretty sure they handed one in but didn't get it back. Just that. Okay, so that explains. And you were absent yesterday, right? So let me write that down. What's up, Jake?
You missed it.
No, you always, no, if you miss a quiz, you always get a chance to make it up. Devin, did you turn one in? Why do you ask, Jake? I'm just curious. Okay, so with this, I am gonna be a little harsh on this. You guys had, it was written on the board that it was open notes, open book. That it was gonna be a quiz. It says right there at the top of the paper, it's gonna be a quiz. All you had to do was look up the answers right there on, most of it was on page 11, I think, of our packets. This page, yep, page 11. The answers would have been found there or right in your reference table. One of the questions said, according to your reference table, New York State, so we know New York State is here in North America. And it says, it asked about North America or New York State. And a whole bunch of you told me it was on a plate boundary. Well, those are here. So New York State is in the middle of a plate. That was one that there's no reason to get that one wrong if you looked it up. Anybody have any specific questions on any of that? Oh, let me tell you the 3 that I gave. The 3 that I didn't think should have been included, if I can find where I wrote that down. Here. Put my answer key. Well, it's here somewhere. Okay, well, I have no idea where I put it. Jake, which one do you want to ask me about? Seven. Yep, so bedrock samples were taken at the mid-ocean ridge and point B and C. So here's the mid-ocean ridge and B and C. And 7 says we want to, on the grid, draw a line to show the relative age of the bedrock samples. So if you recall from the example where we talked about Megan and her family, that baby rocks are being born at the mid-ocean ridge. So these will be the youngest here at the mid-ocean ridge. What happens to the rocks as new babies are born? What happens to those babies? The old babies. They get pushed out. So they get older as you go out. So these get older in both directions. So the baby is found in the middle and they get older as you go out. So on that graph, we would have, this would be the youngest at the mid-ocean ridge, youngest. They would be older on each side. So your graph would have looked something like that. I gave lots of leniency on that, as long as the youngest dot was at the mid-ocean ridge and they were older than that out further as you got further away.
I misunderstood what I was saying. I thought it was like the mid-ocean ridge is labeled like B to C, and then you were drawing a line from younger to older as it time went on.
Nope, that's why it's labeled mid-ocean ridge here, B and C here. Any others that you want? Wish I could find the answer keys so I could tell you at least which ones I didn't count, but here somewhere. And I know I looked through all this stuff once. Oh, all right. Any others? Wait, I bet it's here. Yes, the ones I did not count were number 5, number 8, and number 12. What's up? 20. Identify the type of tectonic plate that borders the western side of the Juan de Fuca plate. So here's the Juan de Fuca, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but there's that plate. Which way is west? We have never. This way is eat. This way is soggy. This way is worms. So we're looking along the western side. That's right there. And according to the key, that's a divergent plate boundary. Any more? Okay, one thing, I hand graded this, so I want to give you the correct answers because I rushed through it to get it done. So there's a possibility I corrected it incorrectly. So take out your answer key. Number 1 is 3. 2 is 2. 3, 1. 4, 3. 5 would have been Ocean Trench. If you would have named the, I believe it was the Peru Chile Trench was the correct answer, but I took anything that said trench. Number 6 was Divergent. Number 7, we already went through that one. That was the one Jake asked about. The graph should have something like a V. Number 8, the answer was 1. Ocean plates are always thinner. Number 9, the answer is 4. 10, the answer is 4. 11, 3. 12, 2. 13, 2. 14, 1. 15, 1. 16, 1. 17, 3. 18 would have been something that the convection currents are responsible for moving the plates. 19, a lot of you got the numbers right. The numbers would have been close to 35 and 20. But if you didn't label them 35 degrees north and 20 west, I couldn't give you credit. And I also did give you a little bit of leniency on that one. 20 was divergent. 21, I was really looking for that Iceland is on a hot spot, but I did accept that the plates are moving apart there, or a divergent plate boundary. 22 is convergent, A and B is transform. Subject 20. We did. So if you said convergent for 20, you were looking on the east side of that plate. And they specifically picked that plate because you were going to think, okay, that's on the western United States. So you might have gotten your east and your west confused. But remember, going west means going this way, no matter where you are on the reference table. Yeah. Transform. What did you put for the first one? Yeah, as I only counted that as one. I didn't make 2 circles there, right? Just one. Okay. Yep. Can I go over 6? Absolutely. Identify the tectonic motion causing an increase in the distance between South America and Africa. So you could have either figured it out from here, or you go here, South America, Africa. In between them is this, which is a divergent plate boundary where the plates are going apart. So I accepted divergent plate boundary or seafloor spreading, or maybe a couple other things, but it had to explain why they were getting apart. Any more? So we are getting close to the end of this chapter. When we're done, all the way done with earthquakes, we will be having a chapter test near the end of probably next week at this time. So right before Christmas break, we'll be having a chapter test. And you do need to know this stuff too. Again, most of it is right on the reference table, so it's not that difficult. But you do need to get it. We'll be all set there, I think.